All right, that worked. Welcome once again to the Face of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka. If you were on our feed before, something happened in StreamYard, didn't want to connect to LinkedIn, so we reset and came back again. So hopefully you're hearing us now. But with me today on the Faces of Business, I've got David Crysler. David, thanks for being here today, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Damon. Excited to have this conversation and excited to get into it with you. Glad that we are now live.
Yeah. Awesome. So great to have you here. It's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to do it because, today we're going to be talking about using systems to drive business growth. And man, when I get to talk to a systems guy like you, I enjoy it because, you've been through the real work of turning companies around with systems and seeing the importance of that happening, and really how by taking those systems, putting simple systems in place, how it can change a business, change a business owner's life. I really think it's going to be fun talking today.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the exact same way, man. Brother from another mother, I think is the is the phrase.
There we go.
But yeah, completely agree. And it's exciting, man. The transformation that you see, I say on both sides, right? On the leadership side, so ownership, leadership team, management team, and at the shop floor level, right? If we're talking about a manufacturing setting, I mean, it's the transformation is it's really what gets me kind of supercharged about all of it, and both sides of it, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, no doubt. So, David, what really brought you to, hey, I want to work on systems?
It's a great question. And, the phrase trial by fire comes to mind when I really think about it. I spent nearly 20 years in a corporate setting working for a publicly traded company that grew through acquisition. And I was kind of fortunate to have had people around me that really saw something in me and continued to give me opportunities, continued to support me, continued to teach me and let me learn. And here's the trial by fire, continued to put me in situations that allowed me to learn and grow and to practice. As I say, like, I grew up in a family run business, right? My parents owned multiple manufacturing companies when I was a little kid. And so kind of growing up in that environment, you obviously, got a great work ethic instilled in me from a very young age. I saw how my parents built their businesses, how they were able to get it to a certain point, but how also they kind of, plateaued at some point because they weren't sure, okay, well, where else do I go from here? How else do I continue to, leverage systems, processes, people, technology? How do I leverage all of that stuff to go from, 5 million to 10 million, 10 million to 20 million? And, so kind of transitioning into a corporate setting and seeing, not only the kind of firepower that they bring, but it was really the kind of the thought process, the methodologies that they would use at each one of these acquisitions to go through and say, okay, what are we doing from a people standpoint? How is that working? What are we doing from a planning standpoint? How is that working? How do we need to get into a better planning cycle? What are we doing from a process standpoint? What processes do we have in place? Are they documented? When's the last time we've reviewed them? What kind of technology do we have at this plant today? And what kind of technology are we going to have to put into this plant to ultimately be able to, drive operational improvement? So it was kind of this culmination of seeing how my parents did things, seeing how it worked in the corporate setting. And for me personally, kind of coming into the entrepreneurial world, I really wanted to tie all of that together because I saw the frustration, whether it was an acquisition facility that was a, second generation family that was running that facility, and kind of all of their frustrations of, well, so and so doesn't do this, and we can't get this done, and I'm dealing with this problem over here on the sales side, or fill in the blank, right? Like you kind of have a lot of those conversations. So I would see that time and time again, and there was a system that as from a corporate standpoint, there's a system that we would go through to identify those problems and start to walk forward and solve them. So for me, that's what this whole thing has been about. Seeing it time and time again, and like I said, kind of getting thrown into the thrown into the fire, thrown into the deep end of the pool,
Yeah.
and having to figure it out. How do you sell more? How do you make more with what you sold? All of that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, you hit on a lot of good stuff here, and I go back to a couple of these. So when you really do, there are natural plateau points that will happen in a business, and there's some business owners and their teams are able to push farther than others because of industry, because of their knowledge, and quite honestly, their willingness to work harder than most other people would ever think that they would, in a lot of cases, because the systems aren't supporting them. But as you see these plateau points and you've brought into these situations, what do you really think you've learned about that? Is it really difficult to get past these points, or is it just applying the fundamentals of putting systems in place will get you past those plateau points?
I mean, I think that's kind of a twofold answer. And one, it mostly depends on the mindset of, the owner and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And, if they're in the right mindset and they are ready to recognize, as I say, kind of look in the mirror first, right? Because typically what happens as you're growing your business, you start your business because you're really good at the thing. Doesn't matter what the thing is, but you're good at it, right? And before you know it, you've got people around you. You've got customers, clients, you've got people, support people, your team, all of that. And so typically what happens is you have to figure out as an owner, as your leadership team, how do you get out of your own way? And what I mean by that is if you're not ready to kind of recognize that you are part of the bottleneck, if not the entire bottleneck, I'm just going to say one of those two is more than likely true. And if you're not ready to recognize that, then it doesn't matter what systems that we recommend. It doesn't matter how we document processes. It doesn't matter what we do from a kind of people culture planning standpoint, because it's not gonna get you to that next level. So for me, it's both. One, recognizing that you've got to have got to be in the right mindset and kind of take a look in the mirror to see how you've contributed to the bottlenecks within your business. And then two, once you're to that point, it really is the fundamentals of taking a look at, kind of the core four, right? Planning, people, process, technology. For me, it's looking at those four categories and connecting those four things to build systems that solve the problems. And the problem can be something literally as simple as, a solid onboarding process, job descriptions, training manual, HR documentation, right? It could be something as rudimentary as that, because what happens is if you bring somebody in and you don't have a really solid hiring and onboarding process, if you don't even have a written job description, you're kind of setting that person up for failure. And so it's all of those little opportunities throughout your entire operation that you have the ability to systemize. And the more you do it, the more things you get out of your head and onto paper, the easier it becomes to get more people involved, to take advantage of the creativity that new people bring into the mix. I used to say it would drive me crazy when I'd go to a new facility, we'd acquire a facility, I'd go there, and everybody just wanted to be in agreement. Everybody, as we used to call it, everybody wanted to be a bobblehead. Yes, okay, I'll do this. It's like, no, that's not what I want. I want your input. I want to know, what you're struggling with. I want to know why it's taking you, twice as long to do this particular part of your process or this particular task. I want to know why we're struggling to meet, delivery dates or quality requirements or fill in the blank. It's like I could literally go on forever. So
no, it's good. It's good because I was thinking about some things, and I think really you're bringing to light two things. The plateau points in business, they are natural. They will happen. And if you're an owner in the business now and you're just business, you're stuck. You've been there for a couple years. You've hit a plateau point. Don't think about it any longer. You got to start changing stuff. But what you talked about, I think, is really one of the keys to taking that next step. And it is when you put simple things in place, a system in onboarding an employee for an example. What you just did is, if I wrote that down, these 3 steps to onboard an employee is, shake their hand, give them a job description, give them their name tag, their hard hat, whatever the heck you're giving them, and say, go out and talk to, Susan, your supervisor out there in the factory. That might be your onboarding process. But by doing that, you've just taken the tribal knowledge out of it. And no longer does Damon have to do it, because Damon's the only one that knows how to do it, but I can have somebody else do it. And I see how the process results are out the other end if we do it right. And then we have a system to start with, and we start to do this. But what it allows these owners to do is to leverage, as you said, the creativity, the knowledge, and the capacity of others in their business.
Yeah, I mean, two points to kind of tack onto that. Number one, the first thing that I always hear, it doesn't matter what we're talking about when we start talking about documented processes, I don't have the time. I don't have time to sit down. I got all these fires. I'm running back and forth from, the office to the shop floor, spinning plates. That's what I'm doing all day, hoping none of them fall down and break. And the reality of it is, it can literally be that first pass. It can literally be that high of a level, because what people don't understand is, like, you're starting to get it out of your head and onto paper. It doesn't matter what the format is. Yes. Could you bring somebody in to, give you the perfect work instruction template? Yes, you could, but it doesn't have to be that complex yet.
Yes.
Let's get it out of your head onto paper. The other thing that I tell people, especially in leadership, that start to say, well, we don't have the time. I don't have the time to sit down and do this. Anybody that has a team around them, one of the most powerful things you can do to harness other people's creativity is to say, Damon, I'm going to train you to help me get this process out of my head. Okay. And what that means is, I'm going to articulate what I think the process should be. I want you to document it. I want you to run it through 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, depending on how big your team is, other people that have already gone through this. And I want you to add to it. I want you to be able to then draft the document, come back to me, let me look over it, let me revise it, let me have some input, but I want you to be the owner of that particular process. And so that's one of the most powerful things you can do, is to delegate something that simple, because you're giving people on your team the power to impact what happens, throughout your organization. And the more you do that, the more, again, you get out of people's way and you give them the bounds, you give them the goal. You're just going to be blown away at the level of energy and the amount of, kind of flurry that you start to see, the amount of buzz you start to see around your business.
I'm glad you shared that, because that is a great way for a business owner to really allow others to step up a little bit, to contribute, and really be a part of it. Because we all, as we're in business today, having everyone feel a part of that business is more important than ever, I believe. And allowing someone to do that does make them feel a part of it. They've built that process. They were training others on the process. They got feedback and reviewed it. And then you, as maybe the owner, the CEO, whatever you want to call it, they will be better because of it. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Good stuff on that. Cause that is, and it is when you see businesses that have hit a plateau. I mean, across the board, the owner, first of all, is doing way too many things and doesn't have ways to offload that work or delegate that work. Shouldn't say offload, but get it to the right people. So you find the owners that are the salesperson, the accountant, and the shop foreman too, or the main delivery driver or whatever you got going on in your small business. And they just need to be able to put things in place so that they can leverage the like we said before, the talent, the capacity, and the energy from the others involved, because it's really the key to scaling and growing your business.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do it all yourself. That was really the lesson for me. Is one thing when I had a facility that I was responsible for that was doing, couple $1 million and I had 20 people. It was another thing when we had, 100 people doing 20 plus million a year. I mean, you can't be everywhere and doing everything. And the other thing I would add about that kind of delegation portion is, it's part of the reason I see business owners and leadership fail in that delegation and having to be the everybody to everything is because they don't they don't start to engage in practice, right? That is a skill that takes time. You're not going to go from not being a good delegator and not being a good trainer and not being a good documenter of processes to being amazing at it all in one foul swoop. Okay. You're going to have some setbacks along the way. You're going to make some mistakes. So it's just that process of starting and practicing and being open with your people. I used to go into when I had my corporate job, I'd get thrown into the deep end of the pool. I'd go in there and kind of say, like, guys, I don't know this. You guys are going to have to train me on some of this. I need to learn it from you because you guys are the ones that are doing it every day. And, having those kind of open dialogues with people, I think buys you a lot of credibility. And I would tell owners, hey, if you've been a particular way for a long time, you've never been able to let go, you've never been able to delegate, have that conversation. Say, guys, I know I've been bad at this, but I really want to try to do this because I know this is the only way to get us from where we are today to where we want to be. And I really want to go on that journey. I want you guys to be on that journey with me. And I need you to kind of call me out. I need you to support me because I'm going to make some mistakes here.
Yeah.
And so let's do this, so just a couple extra things I wanted to add to that, because I find that that's really a struggle for a lot of owners that do wear all the hats, right? That first step of engaging people and delegating to them. And again, from my standpoint, from my experience, it's all about those kind of initial startup conversations around it. And then the support conversations and just being real with people, like just be a person.
Well, you brought up one thing, and I was thinking about this, and you go, people that are my age, over 50, right? We were taught you don't show weakness. You don't show, in business, it's always that. And really, I can't stress the importance of what you said, of just sharing with people honestly what is going on, because that is so important. Because people want where they work, they want it to succeed, they want it to be a place where they can come and be happy about coming to work and all that other stuff. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's just a sign of, hey, I'm human, that's the way it is, I've acknowledged it, let's move on, let's work on it and figure things out. And you'll see other people do that too. Will begin to adopt and try to grow themselves as well, because they see that you're doing it. Because a lot of times, people look at themselves as the owner as, hey, in the end, yes, the decisions come to fall down on you and all that stuff, but you don't have to know everything. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to be the one. And there was one simple question that I think someone, I don't even remember who, told me many years ago when I was starting out to be a manager and talking about delegating and talking about, really, because as someone that grew up knowing how to do something well, you're also then an expert in doing that, which is also your downfall, because it's easy for you to solve other people's problems when they should be solving them in business. And I forget who it was, but they said the simple thing you ask of people that you're managing when they come to you and ask a question that they should be answering themselves, you say, well, what do you think? And then agree with them and say, that's a good idea, go do it. And it's, something that simple, in the way that we manage can change the way that a business runs and the way we do things. And by doing that, then you put those people in a situation like you talked about. It's like, okay, Dave, now you're ready to go out and you're running this production department, you're running this production line. Document how the stuff's built on it. You know how it is. You know how to do it. What happens at each step in the process? And if it takes scratching on a piece of paper, if it takes you taking 10 pictures with your cell phone at the different things, and we stick that on a piece of paper, that's what we're starting with.
Yeah.
And you know, you just, and then they become a part of it, like you said. I think, because I think that tying it back to what you said earlier about letting them build that, it's really simple elegance and brilliance in building systems in your company around that stuff. Now, when we look at systems too, and we're talking about using systems to drive business growth, people think of systems, they think ERP systems and stuff like that. When you look at businesses that have systems problems, how many times is it that they've got a big system problem, like their ERP system is just look, and they got to, you know, it's a boat anchor, they need to dump it? Or is it the stuff around it in their business that is needs more attention than that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, the simple way to answer it is more times than not, it's the stuff around it. More times than not, it is not something ultra complex in terms of, you know, an ERP implementation disaster. But I will tell you, in that specific scenario, the times that I have seen ERP implementation disasters, it's a direct result of not one, understanding your business, as crazy as that sounds, but not understanding the processes within your business,
Mm-hmm.
and or, you know, recreating poor processes within that ERP environment. So, but, you know, as I tell people, you know, when we talk about systems, a lot of times, to your point, a lot of times, oh, that, you know, oh, it must be CRM. Oh, you must be talking about ERP. Well, yes, but you have to get to a certain point before you're ready to even entertain that level of technology within your business, because the amount of data that will provide you will overwhelm you very quickly if you are not prepared to receive that and prepared to run your business based on the data. And
Yeah.
the other thing that, you know, can really get you into the weeds is the fact that, you know, bad data in is going to give you bad data out. So again, if you don't have the processes, if you don't understand and have the processes documented well, going into something as complex as an ERP implementation is really going to do you a disservice. So I always start, you know, my kind of core four, right? We start planning, then we start talking about people, then we start talking about process, then finally is technology. It
Yeah.
goes in that order every time, because I want to find out, you know, what are we doing on the planning cycle side of things? You know, how are we looking at our business? Do we have, you know, are we implementing standard costs? Do we need to talk about that? Do we have, you know, product and service costing requirements that need to be reviewed? You know, how often are we reviewing, you know, our revenue cycle and our profitability? I mean, I go into some businesses that don't even look at their financial statements on any given, you know, monthly basis.
Yeah.
You know, and that can be scary. That's, you know, that's blind leading the blind in terms of what's happening inside of your business. You should never wait. You know, as I say, you should never fully wait to just have your accountant or CPA or somebody deliver financial results for you. You need to understand that as a business owner, what's happening inside of your business, because
Yeah.
you can severely impact you know, many lives by not having handle on that stuff. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's one of the first things that we do when we go in is, and Gail's with us here today. Hey, Gail, glad you could find us after our LinkedIn, the technical glitch where it wouldn't go live, but glad to see you here. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
glad you could join, Gail.
yeah, yeah. But that's one of the things that we really, and I was drilled into my head running businesses for investors is the fact that you really can't, if you are aggressively, and I shouldn't say aggressively, but if you're really desiring to make fundamental change in your business, the waiting for the cycle of a monthly financial statement is too long. You've missed your opportunity to change. And depending on your business and depending on the sophistication of your business, the complexity, all different kinds of things, some people, it's really, really good that they should be measuring it on a daily basis. Some people can do it on a weekly basis, but that more frequent basis gives you the feedback to be able to go, okay, and it could be as simple as my dollars produced per labor hour this week, or my total sales for the day, and it could be as simple as that. And you look at a restaurant sitting situation, I know I've got 5 people working, and if I sell X amount of money of food today, or drinks and food, whatever the combination is, I'm doing well. And just knowing those simple things on that frequent basis allows you to adjust, because a financial statement is done not at the end of the month on the 31st. It's done probably a week, maybe 2 weeks after. If you're not good at it, it might be the next month. And that is really way too long. You're 2 weeks after something, or 2 months after something happened, 6 weeks after something happened. And this more frequent review of not necessarily financials, but good indicators is really where you give the management teams the power to do what they can do.
100%. I mean, I define, kind of putting those KPIs, and doesn't matter again what we're talking about. It could be your financial reports, it could be, some of the other things that you brought out, but basically having lead indicators and lag indicators, right? Yep. Lead indicators are going to be stuff that's happening or forecasting, right? How many sales leads do I have in my pipeline? How many, work in process orders do I have out on the shop floor today? All of those types of things. And the other thing I would add to what you just said is, I know, again, both from the corporate setting and from family owned businesses, it can be sometimes, a corporate setting, it was more of a, a compliance issue. In a family run setting, it's more of a, I don't want to tell people issue, but my point is, the more information about those KPIs that you can share down to the floor level, the more impact ultimately in the long run. It's not going to happen overnight, but in the long run that you will have. I remember having a conversation with a shop floor manager, and it was like, why are we posting all this information out here? Because, none of the people on the floor understand it, and, they don't ever come up here and read. But what was interesting is that over the course of time, the more conversations that you had, the more times you referenced those data points and talked about them, tying those data points to what the company goals were, the more people that got interested all the way down to the shop floor. And yeah, they might not have the same level of comprehension as somebody else. But at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is communicate to people, where are we going? How are we doing on that journey? Are we winning? Are we losing? Mm-hmm. Are we just treading water? What are we doing? And if you don't communicate that stuff to people, you can't get upset as an owner or as a leader that, well, these guys, these girls, right? How many times have you walked into a shop and heard, leadership say something along those lines, so-and-so isn't, pulling their weight. So-and-so isn't doing this, or, none of these guys, none of these girls want to work, it blows my mind,
That exactly. And when you flip that around and you're giving those people that information, and you use systems, again, we're talking about systems, using systems to drive business growth. I go back many, many years to when Kaizen and 5S and those kind of things started to really come in vogue in manufacturing. We said, well, why do you do this? Why do you do that? It was implementing systems is all it was. Implementing systems to keep the place organized, implementing systems to be more efficient, and then documenting those systems so that you can continue to do that. And that, in the end, drives efficiency. Yeah. And when you can tie those together with KPIs, the good systems, and a way to improve them over time, because they all need to be adjusted and those kind of things, the power is you begin to have all these people in the business that are helping to improve the performance of the business. And it's a beautiful thing. And I remember this many, many years ago now that I had a person that ran a portion of a manufacturing facility for me. And when we could begin to share what his labor costs were in a week and the output of the area in a week, and we said, listen, don't, I mean, we don't want anybody unsafe. All we want to do is you maximize the efficiency of your area, not only from I'm walking around trying to help people do it, but think about it from a monetary standpoint too. Try to be efficient with the money that's spent, because the people that are here can get paid more for more efficient, right?
Yeah.
And in this factory, and it was 200 people. So in this factory, over the course of about 2 years, we raised the wages by over a third to the everybody. And we made more money.
Yeah.
And we made a lot more money. And it
Yeah.
was because that information was in the hands of people. And when I looked at the person that was doing this step in a process on an assembly line or something, they knew that if they worked at it and they got better at something or changed something around to get it better and could go a little faster, they could make more money.
Yep.
But they also knew, we had quality and those kind of things. But the power of all the minds, that's what I'm trying to get back to. When the systems that you put in place allow you, I think, to harness more people's minds and creativity.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, and getting back to kind of the earlier point about how systems can be so simple, right? I
Yes.
think I think I think people often think systems have to be complex, that they have to be ERP level complex.
Oh,
And while they can be, they can literally be as simple as, a 5S project. They can
yep.
literally be as simple, as, doing some quick changeover studies or doing a workflow process map or a value stream map, any of those types of things. So yeah, it's very much, one point I wanted to get back to too, in terms of, a lot of businesses that I've been into not quite being ready to go to the ERP stage. The reason that I say that is because more times than not, they have some ability to deliver the KPIs, the data in some form or fashion. So, let's utilize what we have first. Let's get all of that done
Mm-hmm.
first. Let's go through and document our processes first and make sure we understand our, all of that first. And then we can start to layer in the complexity that, ERP brings into the mix, and all of the other kind of, what I would say is when it gets really fun, because then you can really start to fine tune and dial in on, almost a real time basis. And in some cases, a real time basis,
Mm-hmm.
how your entire operation is running. I mean, it's the amount of detail that you can get into it's amazing. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, and you made a great point, and Sam Gupta brings this up too when he talks about ERP, and one of the biggest problems that you see is they don't have a documented process before they start implementing an ERP, so they don't know what they're implementing.
yeah.
And you brought that point up. I think that is gold right there for someone that's considering either revamping how they do it or upgrading into a new ERP system. Is, hey, document what you're doing now, so you at least got a starting point.
Yeah. I mean, and you can take it even to, if we're talking about a small, or let's say we're talking about a, single digit $1 million manufacturing operation, right? You can tie that all the way into somebody that's just running QuickBooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
A bloated chart of accounts, a really, terrible process to generate invoices, or, you can expand that a bunch of different ways. It doesn't just have to be as we're talking about an ERP implementation. So I encourage people, again, kind of no matter what type of systems you have from a technology standpoint, there are opportunities to look for ways to improve what you're doing, to fully understand, what I say is kind of, what's the ideal process, right? Don't let's not talk about what we do today. We can talk about that as like current state, but what would be in an ideal perfect world, what would that process look like? And then let's compare those two and figure out, are there things that we can do today with what we have in place, right? People, technology, process, that we can make that thing happen? or is there some small bolt-on that we need to add into the
Yep.
mix to be able to make that happen? But, what's kind of the least amount of lift to get us to that ideal process state? And I bring that up because, again, I feel too often we say, and it goes back to almost the delegation comment, just because we've always done it this way does not mean that that's the way we should be doing it.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people to push the envelope and say, is there a better way? In an ideal world, could we do this faster? Could we do this with less material? Could we do this with less labor? What else could we do to, and fill in the blank, right? We can keep going down that path, but I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's awesome. It's awesome because it is. Yeah. Good. Yeah. It's just good stuff because it all comes back to just knowing how you're going to do things. And like you said, it's around the system and things like that. One of the things that I really have learned in the last 4 or 5 years is the almost necessity for systems in sales now. And this is much different. I think a lot of manufacturers and a lot of businesses in general are struggling with this because the sales process has changed so much. And COVID changed it, and I'm not even
Yeah.
talking about that. Just forget that
Yeah.
that even happened if you want to in the sales process, because the different ways we're bombarded with all kinds of information, and you're trying to make build relationships, find contacts, and do these things, and then nurture those relationships until the right point where a sale could happen. I just look at that and I go, it's a whole new plethora of things for you to help companies with, because that's you don't have to be a sales expert to put, might help, but a simple sales process is a process like any other, from the standpoint of I have steps in it and I need to make sure I'm following them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect point. It's interesting. I'll tell you a quick story about a conversation I had earlier this week with a client, and it's interesting because I feel like it's telling of what you're saying and kind of this bigger picture, thought process, right? Like the sales process, the prospecting process, even some of the just ongoing kind of relationship portion is all different today. And the conversation that I had with a client earlier this week centered around a thank you, a touch point, right? An
Yep.
after the fact touch point. And, they came to me and said, I need, do you know anybody that can help me with copy? Because I really need to, here's what I'm trying to do. We want to send out these thank yous after the sale, and I want to put a really nice message in there for people. And I stopped in mid track because I said, look, that's the worst thing you can do. I said, this company does a lot of sales in person. And so the salespeople have a relationship that's building and that happens in person
Yeah.
with this sale. And so I said to him, I said, look, in that thank you, what you need to tell people is connect some aspect of that sale, some aspect about what their pain point was, how your product is going to impact that, and what you think is going to be the result, or kind of like that next part of the step. I said, be genuine, say that in 2 sentences, and my guess is you're probably going to get either additional referrals out of that or additional business coming back your way. Because to me, it's all about just being a person. It's all about saying, like, that's what people are dying for, in my opinion, today. Because you've got, so many things happening virtual, where you don't have a real connection to real people.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got, kind of that comparison culture, where you can see, everybody's perfect image of what their
Yeah.
life is, and all of those different things. And I think people they really just want to connect with somebody. And so to me, being genuine and say, hey, Damon, I really appreciate you, stopping by and seeing me on, Friday. And, I really appreciate you purchasing this product from me. I hope it helps you with, XYZ. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. That's all you got to do. handwrite
Yeah.
it, 2 sentences. What's
Yeah.
that take? 5 minutes? I
Yep.
mean, it's so worth the investment. So again, back to not making things complex. You don't need to automate all of that. And yes, there's companies that you can find out there that will take your database and take your, sales, and they'll merge all of that, and they'll create custom cards and make it look like you hand wrote it and all of that. Yes, there's all of that stuff. But do we really need to do that in this situation? No, we don't,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
So
especially in something like a manufacturing type setting with most of your, as Ray Zaganto, the manufacturing unicorn out of Chicago. I always love him. He says,
yeah,
you don't need 100 clients in manufacturing. You probably need 3 more good clients and you're done. And it's
yeah,
true. It's true. And when you look at it, but coming back to process again and using systems and those kind of things, one of the things I love about the sales system, and Wesley Greer does an awesome job talking about sales systems. If you ever look her up on LinkedIn, well worth your time to talk with her about that. But the sales process doesn't have to, it's not all electronic. It never is all electronic. And the process just needs to lay out step A, B, C, D, however many steps it is, and you need to follow it.
yeah,
It's just those things that you have to do. And then, but by doing the process, putting the process in place, and it could be, Damon, you need to make a phone call, you need to send an email, you need to write that 2-sentence letter to them, and then you need to call them again. It's that simple.
yeah.
It's a process. It's a system we've put in place that now I can show another salesperson how we sell here at XYZ. And the the beauty of this and the systems that you're doing and that you talk about is the simplicity in that, and the scalability of these simple things.
Yeah, I mean, you can for that, exact instance, right? I think about a checklist. That's the simplest way to do it. And there's some tools that are available. Like again, there's tools that are available, but you can literally just create something as simple. I mean, I've seen people make copies of checklists. It could be that simple,
Yep.
right? So it does not have to be complex. What I would add into, your example, and I think it was a good one, is as we're thinking about something like the sales process, making sure that if you do implore some tools, CRM, or some other types of tools that connect leads, that you are adding that into your checklist, into your written
Yep.
documentation, so that people understand. And the other thing I would throw out there when we're talking about training on processes, one of the tools I really love using in a training setting is Loom. And I don't get paid by them, right? It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
tool that I happen to love. But there's a bunch of different ones. So you pick one
Yeah.
that you like, but it's a screen recorder, and it puts your face in a little bubble in the corner of the screen, and you can move your face around if you want. But the coolest part about it is that you could walk somebody through, let's say you're training somebody on a CRM. And, to your point, that there are a couple of, very important steps that you want people to make sure that they follow in that process. You can walk through that entire thing in one 5-minute video. You can host it on, Google or Microsoft or whatever
Yep.
your favorite platform, internal server, doesn't matter. Again, all that stuff doesn't matter. But then it becomes a library. Then you can start building your video process library, where now you've got new training videos. You can have follow-up training for people. Yeah, again, it's literally this simple stuff, right? That
And
that
you
you can
just
start
hit
with.
it. You hit it so well there, and that's gold. Among the gold is something that people should think about, because I've actually got a client that we in the next quarter we're going to start helping document processes, and we're going to do that same thing. And it's going to be, like you said, a Loom screen video going on as this is what we do this step, do this step, do this step.
Yep.
That's all we're doing. That's what we're doing for documenting processes. And it's that simple. If we need to write them, we need to do beyond that, need to something else, that'll be done. But that'll capture 80-90% of the information you need right there. And that's
Yep.
so good for people that want to develop a process that they can train people on.
The other cool thing you can do with that is, because, a lot of the companies I go into don't have, big IT infrastructure,
Yeah.
right? So another really cool thing you can do is create a private YouTube channel. and then you can, create QR codes out on your workstations. Boom, scan it, because who doesn't have a smartphone these days, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you scan the QR code, it drops you right to the YouTube channel, the private YouTube channel, and that way you've got process documentation where you need it throughout your entire organization. You don't have to create some, crazy separate library. You can tag videos, so you can create tags for customer service. You can create tags for,
Wow.
whatever, shop floor. You can create tags for warehouse. You can create tags for shipping. All of that stuff. It's just another way to kind of take advantage of getting this information to the right people. And then again, go back to what I started with, encouraging people to get involved and say, how can we improve this? What part's missing? Is there some key aspect of this that I didn't touch on that we should be adding? Is there anything else we need to cover? Is there something that happens regularly that we need to address? Just start having those types of conversations. And again, I almost guarantee that you will be blown away by how quickly your business starts to pick up steam.
That's incredible. Awesome. And it's just awesome advice. I mean, all the way you started talking to the private YouTube channel, and I was thinking of this working in the business myself, and I was just soaking it in, man. So great. So great.
I mean, thank you. But again, my point is it doesn't have to be complex. Let's not make this stuff complex. And we can build the complexity in as it comes down the road, right? Let's just get started with it. Because just starting is going to be better than where you're at today, and we can continue to take steps forward. So I think that's, part of the roadblock for a lot of people, though. They look at systems as being intimidating because, again, you talk systems, it's like, oh, well, we don't need an ERP. Oh, we don't need to do that. We don't need any, automation within our, manufacturing environment. It's like, well, at some point you will, right? If you want to go from, 15 million to 30 million, at some point you're going to have to start, deploying some of this stuff because there's only so much that people can do until you get to, again, that another plateau. So you've got to, at some point, start implementing, more complexity into your operation. But to get started wherever you're at today, just simplest path, quickest path, because then you can change. Then you can see what's working, what's not. Change, continue to change.
Good stuff. You said one thing, and it was just rolling through my mind. There's about a gazillion things that are going through my head right now. I'm really excited because this is good stuff. Because I'm writing a lot of notes because there's things that I'm going to use out of here too, and it's always awesome just to hear things from people as really as talented as you in this. Because I was thinking, if a system is intimidating somebody, just simply write down the steps that you think you need to go through. And I'm thinking I've been working with clients on some sales stuff, and we're looking at multi-such sales processes. And as you were talking about just putting the steps down, I was thinking to myself, well, why the heck haven't we done that? Just write the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, we need a system. Yes, we're going to need that. But once you write that down and you start, like you said, put what you know about each step, and then keep building on that, and then follow the process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so easy.
You can get yourself into the weeds. Like I love spreadsheets and PowerPoints and, flow charts. And I mean, you name it. And I love all of that stuff. But honestly, the best place to start, ink and paper, pencil and paper, get it there first. And then you can transfer it to, let's say, a Google Doc where you could share it amongst your leadership team. And then you let them have some input. And then you can share it out to the shop floor and let them have some, right? Like you can take small steps to it because, again, it's the, how do you eat an elephant, right? And when we look at some of this stuff, sometimes that's what we see. We see a big elephant and then what happens? I'll get to that. We don't have time to deal with that right now.
It's too big.
That never happens. That never happens. So there's always something else that gets put in front of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, David, it's been awesome having you on today, and we could talk for a long time on this. And we may have to come back again because there's some of these things that it would be really fun to have you come back and talk about some specifics. But I just want to say I appreciate you stopping by and sharing a little bit more and just talking about this so hopefully we can break down the maybe a little bit of the fear factor, the intimidation of systems. And maybe we've inspired some people today to take that first step and start to really do the things that will build a business that will go past those plateaus.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Damon. It's always fun to chat with you. And yeah, always happy to jump back on another one of these because, yeah, I love this stuff. I'm really passionate about it. I really enjoy it. This is the stuff that gets me going. And again, kind of, wrapping how I started for me, it's seeing the transformation of, the leadership and the shop floor coming together and really moving the needle for people's businesses. It's just that transformation is just kind of so magical. There's just really no way to articulate it for me, but that's really the thing that does it for me every time, and it's what keeps me coming back. So I appreciate you letting me be a guest on here.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. And what you're doing is actually helping, when I'm working with owners and we're trying to get their business to the size they want, and then making a business that they can actually sell and then get it sold for them. What you're talking about, the system and stuff, it just really addresses one of the key problems, and that is ownership involvement in a business. If the owner is the heart, the soul, the everything of a business, it's worth nothing without that owner. And it takes systems like yours that you're helping people to put in place to really allow that owner to multiply their value and spread that value of the business into everyone that works there.
Yeah, 100%, man. Reclaim your life and grow your business. That's why I use that.
There you go. Reclaim your life and grow your business. Awesome. Well, Dave, thanks so much for being here today. We will be back again next week with another guest on the Faces of Business, but we're just finishing up here with Dave Crysler from the Crysler Club, and we'll be back again. I was gonna say something, Dave, about if you look at the spelling of Dave's last name. Dave's last name is spelled Crysler, C-R-Y, without an H, like the auto company, and he's from Detroit. So I bet you've had to spell that a few times.
Once or twice.
Yes. Well, with a last name like Pistolka, I've spelled mine a few times as well, too.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll be back again next week.
Thanks, Damon.